Okay, into our favorite unit about circles. Now, I know this was one of the trickiest units, actually, but again, it's only 5 questions, guys. You just know these 5 topics, so we'll try and break it down a little bit. So the hardest part about this unit was choosing the right formula and then knowing where to plug things in. We've gotten used to, hopefully by now, that when you're looking at a formula, and you've got your formula sheet that I passed out to you guys, there's 2 sides to the formula. It's not just what's to the right of the equal sign. It is the whole thing. So you have to be saying to yourself, I have this number. Is this number an angle or is this number an arc? And then we can go from there. Now let me go back to my slides. There we go. So let's go ahead and try this. Remember that to choose the right formula for a lot of these pictures where we have the lines crisscrossing in a circle, you have to find where the vertex of your angle is. Now again, vertex is a fancy math word. The vertex is literally this point right here. We'd call that point the vertex. So you can label that on the picture. So wherever that point, not even just like, we don't call this the vertex, right? The vertex is a point. Where it's at on the circle, that's how we know what formula it is. So I want you to match the picture with where the vertex of the angles are located. Now again, if you look on your formula sheet, you see that we have on the circle, inside the circle, outside the circle. It has a kind of label there. Again, on is literally smack dab on the circle. I can't clarify that anymore. This is on, this is inside, this is outside. Let's go ahead and look at the slides. I got 1, 2, 3. Go ahead and put like an A, B, C by each of these. Which one is on the circle? Which one's inside the circle? Which one's outside the circle? Go ahead and try that, which is A, B, and C. Okay, so on the circle is going to be this guy right here. That point is on the circle. So this is A, on the circle. B, inside the circle, is going to be this guy. That point is inside the circle. That's B. And then lastly, this point is outside the circle. That's C. And that's, again, how we know what the formula is. On your formula sheet, you see on, inside, outside. If you can say that to yourself in your head, then you know what formula to use. Let's go ahead and try this. Now, again, guys, what I'm going to recommend is that you do number 1, and then I'm going to have a little note to pause the video and go try number 1 on the quiz. You want to go back and forth so you don't do the whole video and then forget what we reviewed. So let's go ahead and do number 1 together. It says, given measure of arc, this is an arc, PN is 100 degrees, find the measure of angle. This is an angle. You have to think that to yourself. You might even want to do that, yeah? So let's go quickly, let's go ahead and label this arc PN. Now, obviously, again, it's a circle, but remember that PN is going to be a minor arc. That's 100 degrees. So remember, guys, that you want to mark what you have, but you also need to mark what you're trying to find. SPN. Take a second and find angle SPN, the picture, and mark it. Well, here is angle SPN. It's this angle right here. That's what I want. So I've got this arc, but I want this angle. So we already determined that this picture is on the circle. Take a look at your formula sheet. What formula are we going to use here if the vertex is on the circle? What's the formula? Formula is right here. It is the measure of the angle. That's how we read that. Equals half the arc. So I'm going to just say here, angle equals 1/2 the arc. Now the problem is that the angle that we want is x, and it's half of the arc that it opens up to. This is what it's half of. See how this arc matches with this angle? But we got that guy right there. So if I knew what this arc was, I could find that angle. So take a second. How could we find this arc here if I know this guy's 100? Well, a full circle has 360 degrees. I have 100 so far. That would make this guy, if I subtract those, 260. That would make this guy right here 260, and that is the arc that goes with the angle that I want. So if I plug in what I have here, again, I still have the 1/2. This 260, again, is that going to go in the angle spot or the arc spot? What is it? 260 is the arc, so it goes here. And I'm trying to find my angle, which is, again, the SPN right? That's what I'm finding. That's my x, however you want to say about it, right? My angle is x. Okay, so all I got to do is go to the calculator, get half of 260 because x is by itself, so we can go to the calculator. What do we got? Half of 260 is 130. Okay, so again, guys, what I want you to do is I want you to pause the video. I'm going to have a little note to pause it. You're going to go and do number 1 on the quiz. You're going to raise your hand if you have any questions on it because it's not going to be identical to this. You have to think, how does that problem different than this guy? Raise your hand if you need help, and then we'll go on to number 2. Okay, so on number 2 here, so same thing again. We already determined that this guy was outside the circle. So again, we're here outside the circle. Take a second to write the formula down off your formula sheet for outside the circle. Okay, so again, in class, I had you guys write down the one that we're used to. We are used to seeing that the angle equals angle 1/2 the outside arc. I'm going to say out arc to make it easier, minus the inside arc. So what we need to do again is we need to label our picture. I have 25, I have 40, I have x. Take a second to put those things in the picture where they should go. Okay, angle 1 is 25. You just got to read carefully. That's 25 degrees right in there. OE is 40 degrees, and LS is x. So again, this is what you guys were having a really hard time with. It's not a choice. The 1/2 is a part of the formula, but then I'd have to plug in everything where they go. What's my angle? What's the outside arc? What's the inside arc? Take a second. You got 25, 40, and x. Which is which? Which is your angle? Outside and inside arc are special. You have to know which is the outside, which is the inside. Okay, well, 25 is my angle. Again, it is. I don't know how to make that more clear. It's the angle. It goes in for the angle, right? We know this is an angle symbol by now. Now, the outside arc is x. Careful that this is the outside arc because it's furthest away from the angle. We call it the outside. That leaves minus 40 for the inside. Okay, so this one is a little bit trickier. And again, I know we had issues with this before. We have to solve this. And x is not by itself versus here, x was by itself. And so we just go straight to the calculator. But x is jumbled up. So what we need to do is we need to get rid of the 1/2. What we do is the opposite of a half, which is actually to multiply by 2. Taking a half, multiplying by 2, those are opposites, and they cancel. But whatever I do to one side, I got to do the other. So I have 25 times 2 over here, which is 50. And over here, I have the rest of what I had. So I have x minus 40. You should know how to finish solving this. Go ahead very quickly and solve. How do I get x by itself? We should add 40. And then x is by itself. Again, the way we know what to do is x by itself or not? If x is by itself, immediately you just go straight into the calculator, plug in what you got. If x is not by itself, you have to move things around. So take a second again, go to number 2 on the quiz. Yours might not be like this. You have to think, how is mine possibly different than this guy? Where does my stuff go? It's not the same every time. Okay, let's go on to number 3. Okay, so once again, we already determined for this picture that we were inside the circle. That point is inside the circle. So please take a second to write the formula down off your formula sheet. Okay, so once again, inside the circle, I had you guys write down on the formula sheet here. I'll keep going over. The formula sheet, it was angle equals 1/2 arc 1 plus arc 2. Now, again, sorry guys, I need you to go ahead and label your picture. Sorry, we have EH is 65. Can you put 65 on the picture and 72 on the picture? Okay, so 65 is EH, so here's EH, that's 65 degrees. At GF is 72. And then I'm going to find both angles. It says find the measure of angle 2 first and then angle 1. So I'm going to go ahead and find angle 2 first. So I'm going to call that x. Now, how this formula works, you have to understand how this formula works. Even though it says angle equals 1/2 arc 1 plus arc 2, the angle we are specifically finding is the angle that opens up to the arc that we have. So notice this angle does open up to the arc, right? That's the pizza crust for that angle, and the one opposite as well. So there you go. So this is good. I can just plug straight in. If this angle goes with the arc I have, I can just plug straight in. So take a second. We're going to solve for angle 2. Where does the x go? Where does the 65? Where does the 72 go? Go ahead and plug it in here. Okay, again, it's not a choice. My angle is x in this case. 1/2. Arc 1 and arc 2, it doesn't matter which one you put, only because we're adding. If we weren't adding, then we'd have to be careful. Okay, so you have to look at this and know what to do. Is x by itself? Yes, x is already by itself. That's what we want. That means all of this can go in the calculator and get us our x, which in this case is angle 2. So take a second, go to the calculator. Okay, so we do get a decimal here, is 68.5. Technically that's x, but that is angle 2. Okay, that's angle 2. So I'm going to go ahead and put that on my picture, actually, because we want to find angle 1 next. And this being 68, sorry, my handwriting there, 0.5 is going to help us out. Because now I want to find angle 1. Notice that angle 1 does not open up to the arc that we have. Angle 1 goes with this arc and this guy. And we don't have them. But what I know now is angle 2. And so if I know angle 2, I can actually find angle 1, because together, here's angle 2. If I include angle 1 in there, this happens. I open up to a straight line. So now this is my x. What do I know about these two guys together because they open up to a straight line? Angle 1 and angle 2 should add up to 180 degrees together because they create this straight line when they open up. So angle 1 is just 180 minus 68.5. Again, we're going to get a decimal, but that's okay. So we get 111.5. That's angle 1. Okay, so I want you guys to go again into the quiz. I want you guys to do number 3. Being careful that, again, it might not be this way. It might be easier. It might be harder. You have to look at the problem and think, okay, what information do I have? What should I do? Go ahead and do number 3 on the quiz. Okay, so now we're through the hard stuff. The first 3 questions are honestly the hard guys because there's so many different variations we can do with it. Let's go ahead and look at number 4 though here. This is just finding the center and the radius of a circle given this equation. And that's pretty simple. If you remember, on your formula sheet here down at the bottom, that's the general standard equation of a circle. I'm going to go ahead and copy it just so you remember. I have x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. And what we need is the center and the radius. So what you have to remember this equation is where the center and the radius comes from. The center is going to be the h and the k in the parentheses. And the radius is just r. Be careful, the formula has r squared. So I want to see if you can remember first, because this one, again, we honestly should remember. What's our center, what's our radius? It's really not tricky. Go ahead and try it. What's our center, what's our radius on this equation? Well, our center is, again, what's with the x and the y. So I have a 3 and nothing. Nothing as a number is 0, though, right? There's nothing with y. However, guys, remember, these are magic changing parentheses. The equation is x minus h, and I have a plus 3. That means that actually when I pull my center out, it's going to be a minus 3. Whatever you see in parentheses is the opposite. And again, because we don't see anything in parentheses with y, that second number is going to be 0. But now for r, again, 25, if you notice, 25 is in the r squared position. That does not mean that r is 25. R squared is 25. If r squared is 25, what does that make r? We should know how to do that. Well, if I square root both sides, I do have r by itself, and that makes r 5. So take a second, go to number 4 on the quiz, try it. Again, be careful. Whatever is in parentheses comes out as the opposite sign, and then you need to square root that last number to get the radius. Okay, the last question here, again, is not terribly tricky. You just got to remember what to do. We are verifying whether DF is tangent to this circle or not. Now, again, a tangent is a line that perfectly touches, right? Tangent touches at one point. It's just going to blip. It's not going to touch anywhere else on the circle. This is very tricky to do. In order for this to happen, what has to happen is there has to be a right angle here between the radius and the line. If there's not a right angle right there, even if it looks like it just touches at one point, it doesn't. So to verify if we have a right angle, we have to use, we just reviewed this, Pythagorean Theorem. If a squared plus b squared does equal c squared. Again, typically, I'm going to write it like this actually. We write it this way whenever I'm verifying if something is a right angle or not. If this is true, then that these are equal, then it is a right angle and it is a tangent. So take a second, you should know how to do this. It's 10, 16, and 8. You can put them on the picture, but it doesn't actually matter too much because we know what should go in for C. Take a second to do this, we just did it yesterday. Okay, well 16 is going to have to go in for C because it's the biggest side. And then A and B don't matter. We can just put 10. We can just put 8. That's fine. 10 squared plus 8 squared. Now, again, I don't know if these are actually equal. I'm just plugging them in the calculator here real quick. 16 squared. So 16 squared, I got 256. I know that 10 squared is 100 and 8 squared is 64. So one more little quick thing here. I got 100 plus 64. This is the 164. Okay, so are these two sides equal? Definitely not. They're not equal. What that means is even if it looks like it just touches, even if it just looks like it touches at one point there, this actually does not. It's not a tangent line. Even if it looks like it, there's no right angle there. So that's all you're doing for the last question. Go ahead and try it on Canvas. And again, at any point, if you were confused through all this, just raise your hand. I'll come over and help.